The world's richest man buys the entire earth. 2 billion poor people even have to pay for breath. How terrifying can the wealth gap be when stretched to its limit? Liu Cicin's prophecy about the end of humanity, darker than the three-body problem. Hello everyone, welcome to Professor Z Watches Movies. In this episode, we will appreciate Liu Cicin's 2005 masterpiece for the benefit of mankind. Ethan is a top assassin. One day, he receives a special assignment. The 13 richest people in the world hire him to kill the 3 poorest people in the world. These 3 people are not disguised spies, nor do they know any earth-shattering secrets. They are simply the 3 poorest individuals at the very bottom of society. Although business is business, Ethan is deeply perplexed. How did these 3 poor people offend this group of super-rich individuals to the extent that they must be killed? Ethan accepts the deposit and walks out of the building. He looks up at the sky. An alien spaceship is slowly passing by. A week ago, the brother starship descended upon Earth. Its appearance resembled a capsule. Its surface, a smooth, perfect mirror, as concise and elegant as the droplet from the three-body problem. It ostentatiously displayed the brother civilization's technological prowess, far surpassing humanity's. The brother civilization's home planet is similar to Earth, located 200 light years from the solar system. Their civilization's history is twice as long as human history on Earth. Therefore, humans should call them brother. The brother civilization traveled a great distance to Earth, so ostentatiously, clearly not with good intentions. Ethan drives his car to scout out the locations based on the addresses in the photos. He first goes to Bloomfield Plaza. Without much effort, he finds the person in the photo. It's an ordinary homeless man rummaging through a trash can for food. Ethan feels strange. Bloomfield Plaza was originally a gathering place for homeless people, but now only this one person remains. Where did the other homeless people go? Were they all assassinated? Next, Ethan goes to the address from the second photo. The target is a homeless painter. In his makeshift shelter built from cardboard boxes, paintings of various sizes hang. These paintings have diverse styles and are very imaginative. Ethan takes a liking to one and wants to buy it. He asks the painter how much it costs. The painter simply says, "You decide how much to give." Ethan takes out all his large bills and hands them to the painter, but the painter only takes 2 bills, saying, "My painting is only worth this much." Finally, Ethan arrives at the address from the third photo, the world's largest garbage dump. Ethan quickly finds the target, a frail little girl, because here, like Bloomfield Plaza, the number of scavengers has drastically decreased. Killing 3 defenseless poor people, killing a pitiful little girl. Why can't Ethan bring himself to do it? Suddenly, he realizes he has already violated the highest principle of his profession. Who you aim at has nothing to do with the gun. Ethan walked into the garbage dump, preparing to kill the little girl. But when he raised his gun and met the little girl's eyes, his hand softened, the gun nearly slipping from his grasp. It's Lily. Lily was a little sister Ethan knew. 14 years ago, Lily was bought by a human trafficker named Marcus, who sawed off her legs. Back then, Ethan was Marcus's bodyguard. He watched Marcus maim children and then put them in the city to beg. Marcus thereby completed his primitive accumulation of wealth, later became rich and a gang leader. Lily, however, died in Ethan's arms from a wound infection. From then on, Ethan's blood turned cold. He often dreamed of a grown-up Lily, looking just like the girl before him. Ethan had Marcus's deep trust. Later, Marcus sent him to an assassin school for advanced training. Ethan learned a vast amount of top-tier assassination skills and also diligently studied a wealth of knowledge, becoming a cultured and thoughtful assassin. The first thing Ethan did after graduating from assassin school was to kill Marcus to avenge Lily. He shot Marcus in the abdomen, watching him in a pool of blood, trying to put his spilled intestines back into his stomach, only for them to spill out again, over and over, until he breathed his last breath. In the following 3 years, Ethan killed 41 people, all of them wealthy. He was consequently wanted by the police. At the garbage dump, Ethan still couldn't pull the trigger. He watched the girl walk away, then returned to the building and found his 13 clients. He asked them why they wanted to kill these 3 people. Asia's richest man, Mr. Sterling, said, "You have violated the professional ethics of your industry." Ethan stated he must understand the reason, otherwise he would refuse to carry out the mission. The world's richest woman, Miss Arjun, said,
"Knowing the great significance of killing these 3, you will be more motivated to execute it."
So Mr. Sterling stood up and gestured for everyone to go outside.
Ethan and the 13 of them walked out of the building.
In the sky, the brother starships were splitting into countless smaller ships. They drove around the city, searching for homeless people. Every time they found one, they gave him a small suitcase. Opening the suitcase, it was full of money, a full 1 million. The homeless people would always ask in disbelief, "What do you need me to do?" Mr. Sterling patiently replied, "If the aliens come and ask you, just say this is your own money. That is the only requirement. Can you do it?" The homeless person nodded frantically. Mr. Sterling and Miss Argent bowed deeply to the homeless person, expressing their gratitude. What shocked Ethan the most was how sincere they looked when expressing their thanks. Afterwards, every time they met a poor person, they would give them a small suitcase. Ethan finally understood the truth behind the sharp decrease in homeless people and realized the monumental changes that the world was about to undergo. Mr. Sterling sighed. In the future, there will be no poverty in the world.
Nor will there be wealth.
Mr. Sterling turned to Ethan. "You see now, we are not psychopaths who kill the poor. On the contrary, we are distributing wealth to the poorest people in cities and villages all over the world. Our company's employees are doing this. They are taking all the group's assets, truckloads of cash, to eliminate poverty." In the sky, the brother starships completed their disintegration. More than 1,000 smaller ships hovered in Earth's atmosphere. Earth was surrounded. Each smaller ship was as large as an aircraft carrier. The weapons on only one smaller ship were enough to destroy Earth. Just yesterday, they destroyed Australia. Destroyed? How? A ray scanned the entire Australian continent from the sky. The ray could penetrate buildings and shelters. Humans and large mammals all died within an hour. Other creatures were unharmed. In the cities, the lights didn't go out. Computers weren't turned off, but the people were all dead. This is a demonstration of power. The reason Australia was chosen is because it was the first country to explicitly state its refusal of the reservation plan. What plan? Ethan looked at Mr. Sterling. Mr. Sterling explained the whole story. The brother civilization is actually a group of wanderers. They couldn't survive on their own planet and therefore came to occupy Earth. As for Earth, all humans will be relocated to a reservation in Australia. All other territories on Earth will belong to the brother civilization. All of this will be announced in tonight's news. Then, with over 5 billion people crowded in Australia, won't they all starve to death soon?
Not that soon. In the Australian reservation, humans will be able to survive without engaging in production.
Survive on what? The brother civilization will support us. They intend to support humanity. All living necessities for humans will be provided long-term by the brother aliens and distributed equally. Human society will no longer have a wealth gap. Then according to what standard will it be distributed? That is the crux of the problem. The brother aliens will conduct a comprehensive social survey of Earth to determine the current minimum living standard of human society. The brother aliens will distribute resources according to this standard, the minimum living standard of human society. I understand it all. Actually, the brother aliens plan is quite fair. If humanity had no wealth gap, the lowest living standard wouldn't differ much from the highest. If you can receive provisions without needing to produce, then the reservation would be a paradise for humans. So what needs to be done now is to quickly erase the social wealth gap before the brother civilization conducts its social survey. Under the unified leadership of the World Coalition Government, a massive poverty alleviation effort is beginning. Rich countries will pour wealth into poor countries. The rich will shower money on the poor.
And all this is done with complete sincerity. What if some poor people don't want your money? Although few, they are enough to form a social class. Then their living standard will be taken as the minimum living standard for humanity and thus become the distribution standard. So you commission me to kill these people. That's right. You are doing a service for humanity, saving human civilization.
I understand.
Bloomfield Plaza. Ethan asked the homeless man, "Why didn't you take their money?" The homeless man gave a sly smile. "They were begging me. If I took their money, they wouldn't beg me anymore. It feels great to have rich people beg me." Ethan then found the painter and asked him why he didn't take the money. The painter said, "My paintings depict poverty and death. If I become a millionaire, my art will die." Ethan nodded. "I will let your art live on because I really like your paintings." At the garbage dump, Ethan found the little girl at a glance because she was the only one there. The other scavengers had evidently taken the money and left. Along the way, he reminded himself 1,000 times, she is not Lily. Don't be influenced by those lingering warm memories of youth. You are a cold-blooded assassin. You are saving all of humanity. So Ethan pulled out his gun. The bullet shredded the little girl's heart. She was completely dead before she hit the ground. That wasn't necessary. The voice came from behind him. A man stood in the center of the garbage dump. Ethan warned him, "Are you going to call the police?" The man shook his head. "We are not interfering in human affairs at the moment." This sentence made Ethan's mind reel. Looking closely, the man indeed didn't seem like an ordinary person. "You've come down?" "Yes, we came down a while ago." Ethan guessed correctly. The man was indeed a brother alien. "Do you have poor people on your planet too?" "Of course, I am one of the poor, dirt poor." He pointed to the starship in the sky. "We all are. How many of you have come?" "Currently, there are 500,000. In a few years, 10,000 more ships will arrive, bringing 1 billion people. All poor people who can't survive? How can a world have so many poor people who can't survive? Won't society descend into chaos? Won't the poor rebel against the rich? Society is very stable. The poor cannot rebel."
The brother alien thought for a moment and said, "Let me tell you the story of the rich and poor on our planet. Initially, the brother planet civilization was very similar to Earth's civilization. Although there was a wealth gap, it wasn't too exaggerated. The extremely rich and the destitute or few. The middle class was the majority. People generally believed that with social progress and technological development, the wealth gap would further narrow. People would enter an era of universal prosperity. But soon, this state was shattered by one event, the education revolution. With breakthroughs in brain-computer interface research, we mastered the technology to directly pour knowledge into the brain. A supercomputer could be implanted in the brain, capable of storing vast amounts of knowledge. These knowledge could directly become clear memories. At this point, knowledge, intelligence, thoughts, and abilities all became commodities, all available for purchase, but they were extremely expensive. The cost of a person receiving a superior education was roughly equivalent to 100 million in your currency. Only a very small fraction of people could afford it. Of course, the returns were also enormous. Those who completed superior education were a dimension above ordinary people. The intellectual difference between the two was like that between a human and a dog. Moreover, these super intellectuals also formed their own culture. Ordinary people could not comprehend this culture. Thus, class became completely solidified. Something naturally occurred. The poor and the rich became two different species. The poor were no longer considered human. Previously, too many poor people would cause social instability. Now, it was impossible for the poor to rebel, as no matter how many dogs there are, they cannot threaten humans. But if rabies endangered the safety of the majority, humans might exterminate all dogs. Compassion for the poor hinges on the word compassion itself, implying a shared nature. When the shared species basis no longer exists, compassion also ceases to exist. This was the second evolution of society on Brother Planet. The first was separating from apes, achieved through natural selection. The second was separating from the poor, achieved through another equally sacred law, the inviolability of private property. This law also exists on your Earth, but the enforcement system is different. On Brother Planet, this set of laws is maintained by a system called the social machine. Its enforcement units are spread throughout every corner of the world and can simultaneously execute hundreds of people. Their enforcement principle is not the 3 laws of robotics, but the constitution of Brother Planet. The basic principle, private property is inviolable. They did not bring tyranny, but absolute justice. It would not favor the wealthy class. Even if the property of the poor was threatened, they would protect it according to the Constitution. They did not bring violence, but absolute harmony and safety, because no one dared to commit crimes. Under the protection of the social machine, the wealth of Brother Planet continuously concentrated into the hands of a few. And technology development led to another thing. The rich no longer needed the poor. High-efficiency robots could do everything. Factories no longer needed workers. The rich no longer needed chefs, nannies, or drivers. Cars were all self-driving. The poor didn't even have the opportunity to sell their labor. Even beautiful
poor girls couldn't sell their bodies because no one wanted them, because AI robot girlfriends had high attractiveness, high emotional intelligence, were safe, cheap, and possessed unbeatable cost-effectiveness. The poor completely lost their value. They were truly destitute. The emergence of this situation completely changed the social fabric of Brother Planet, greatly accelerating the concentration of wealth into the hands of a few. In my grandfather's time, 60% of the wealth on Brother Planet was held by 10 million people. In my grandfather's time, 80% of the wealth was held by 10,000 people. In my father's time, 90% of the wealth was held by 42 people. And when I was born, capitalism on Brother Planet reached its peak. 99% of the wealth was held by one person. This person was called the middle-class man. Brother Planet became a world composed of one rich person and 2 billion poor people. At this time, the constitutional law of inviolable private property was still in effect. Enforcement units still faithfully protected the private property of that one rich person. Anyone who dared to steal or rob would be eliminated. The middle-class man owned the entire Brother Planet. The continents and oceans were his living room and courtyard. Even the atmosphere was his private property. The remaining 2 billion poor people all lived in sealed residences. Each residence itself was a self-sufficient miniature ecosystem recycling system. The air they breathed and water they drank was turbid air and water that had been recycled and filtered countless times. The food they ate was synthesized and regenerated from their own excrement. Even if they lived in lush, vast, and fertile nature, they could not take anything from it because everything was the middle-class man's private property. If you wanted to indulge, to step out of your sealed home, you could spend a little money to buy an air meter pill. Swallow it. It could detect and record the amount of air you inhale. With each breath, your bank account would automatically be debited a small amount. For the poor, every breath of natural air was slightly sweet, so fresh it brought tears to their eyes. But because it was too expensive, they could only come out once or twice a year on holidays. When they came out, they didn't dare to engage in strenuous activity, usually sitting motionless to control their breathing rate. Before going home, they had to carefully scrape the soles of their shoes because the soil outside did not belong to them either. Now I will tell you how my parents died. My home was situated by a small river, surrounded by green meadows with verdant mountains not far away. To save expenses, my mother hadn't been outdoors for 3 years. One night, she actually sleepwalked outdoors. An enforcement unit discovered her, detected she hadn't swallowed an air meter pill, and began dragging her towards home. Simultaneously, a mechanical hand clamped her neck, preventing her from breathing. To protect another citizen's private property, air. By the time she reached home, she had been strangled to death. The enforcement unit laid her body down and told us she had committed theft. We were to be fined, but we had no money left. So my mother's body was confiscated to cover the debt. A person's body is very valuable. 70% of its weight is water, but the value of the body was not enough to pay the fine. The enforcement unit then drew a certain amount of air from our home. This forced my father and I to electrolyze 15 liters of water to replenish the lost air. However, this operation caused problems in the residence's ecosystem recycling system. If 15 liters of water were not replenished promptly, the ecosystem recycling system would collapse in 30 hours. My father and I fell into despair. We even prepared to steal some water from the nearby river, but we gave up as soon as we stepped outside because enforcement units were everywhere. My father pondered for a while, told me not to worry and go to sleep first. I fell into a deep sleep in a state of fear and hypoxia. I don't know how much time passed, but a robot woke me up. It pointed to a bucket of water beside me and said, "This is your father." A resource conversion vehicle was parked outside my house. That's where my father had all the water in his body extracted. And less than 100 meters from my home, a small river flowed gurgling under the moonlight. Besides water, the conversion vehicle also extracted a box of fats from his body, some calcium tablets, and a coin-sized piece of iron. After my father died, I lived alone, growing up addicted to VR games. 5 years later, I saw a person jogging by the river. He was breathing heavily, washing his feet, in the clear river water. I wondered who could be so extravagant. Looking closely, I realized it was the middle-class man. He had lived for over 2,000 years, but he looked like a very ordinary middle-aged man. Another 2 years passed, and my home's recycling system completely collapsed. The oxygen content in the air kept decreasing. I had to swallow an air meter pill and leave my home. I had to accept this fate, breathe away my meager bank savings, and then be strangled to death by an enforcement unit. Strangely, I found many people outside. Household ecological recycling systems had begun to collapse en masse. I didn't know what went wrong. Enforcement units hovered above, issuing warnings. Citizens, you are trespassing on someone else's property. Please leave as soon as possible. Leave? Where could we go? Along with others, I ran freely on the grass, letting the sweet spring breeze blow across our pale faces, continuing even after our bank savings were depleted from breathing. The enforcement units did not take action, but instead broadcast the middle-class man's voice. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my humble abode. I am very pleased to have so many guests, but please understand, you have come in such large numbers. Currently, there are 1 billion of you, and another billion may be on their way. You are infringing upon my privacy and private property as a citizen. The social machine should have legally ended your lives. If I hadn't dissuaded it, you would have been vaporized long ago. I am a person who has received superior education multiple times. I'm polite to guests. I prefer quiet solitude, so please leave. Of course, I know you all have nowhere to go on Brother Planet, so I have prepared 20,000 starships for you, with life hibernation chambers sufficient for everyone, and enough fuel to support your journey to find a new home. Please embark as soon as possible. For the sake of our shared evolutionary origin, I will remember you. Take care. And so, we boarded the starships, entered cryogenic hibernation, and journeyed for 30,000 years. We lost nearly half of our ships, but finally, 1 billion of us reached this world. That is the story of Brother Planet, the story of 2 billion poor people and 1 rich man. After hearing the brother alien story, Ethan asked him, without your interference, would our world repeat this story? I don't know. I'm just an ordinary investigator, also struggling to make a living. Well, I should go. Please take care. Younger brother, take care. Under the glow of the brother star ring, the 2 men from 2 worlds walked off in separate directions. Ethan went to his 13 clients. He took out a handful of bullets, counted them, exactly 13. Shock and fear flickered briefly on the faces of the 13 wealthy individuals, followed only by the serenity of release. Outside, a cluster of giant fireballs streaked across the sky, their light dazzling, the earth trembling violently. The brother starships were beginning to enter the atmosphere. Mr. Sterling said, "We have accepted your work. You did very well. The final payment has been transferred to your account. If you feel it's not enough, we can add 10 times more." Ethan shook his head. Money is useless now. Miss Argent pointed to a pile of instant noodles on the table. "You haven't eaten yet, have you? Let's eat, and then we can talk." Saying this, the group used a large silver wine basin and 3 crystal ashtrays to set up a simple stove, lit a wad of cash, and began to boil water, staring blankly at the yellowish-green flame as it danced merrily like a living creature. When 1.35 million had been burned, the water boiled, just like fate.
A good story takes you to places life can't. I'm Professor Z. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.